protocol has some limitations, but the idea is so strong and powerful that people are solving for those limitations. And that's what Michael Saylor did. And so by figuring out that corporate finance problem, he's created an absolute ton of value, right? By using fundamental capital allocation strategy and theories to get more fiat into Bitcoin. And so, that has very powerful building effects and snowballing effects. And now that's the entity, right, to do that. Again, others are cropping up, but he was the first to do it. And he continues to find ways to innovate and provide access to capital, access to Bitcoin in a variety of risk levels, right? All the way from more senior down to the equity for those that want to do it. And so, people look at it and say there's this premium. And I look at it and I say, yeah, there's a premium there for a reason. Someone's figuring out a lot of interesting corporate finance problems with regard to a new technology. So you can say, oh, that premium is going to go away because you can always, well, yeah, you can't. No one's doing it though, and they haven't figured out how to do it as well as MicroStrategy has. So, just to look at this and say, well, it's at a premium. Yeah, but guess what? He's solving the problem and he's dealing with that issue by selling more shares and getting more money into Bitcoin. So, I'm enormously bullish just in terms of, Michael and what strategy's doing. And I'm excited for the future for other corporations to hop on board.
We're obviously seeing a huge acceleration just in terms of adopting strategy. And the other interesting thing, right, is their rebrand going on. MicroStrategy being a software company, rebranding to Strategy as a Bitcoin company. Metaplanet did, while they didn't change their name, they did a similar rebrand, integrating like the Bitcoin Orange and that sort of thing. And it's obviously, done wonders for shareholder value. I guess my question for you, Bill, being a value investor, can every corporation does every corporation fit the criteria to integrate a Bitcoin Treasury strategy? One of the things I get concerned about is that there might be some of these small cap pubcos who are at risk of being delisted that try to capitalize on the Bitcoin narrative. Almost, pardon my French, but to call them kind of like the shitcoin companies that are, taking the strategy potentially. What should people look out for? Is every corporate company, capable of doing this thing?
Well, from a value investor's perspective, I know there are 70 or 80 companies right now around the world that actually are on publicly traded exchanges that own Bitcoin, which is awesome. We only own a handful of them because we try and take a value oriented approach and contextualize each one a little differently. So we are supportive of any and every company that wants to store value in a better way, right? If that's Bitcoin, do we want to own them all? Maybe not, and maybe not because and the reason there would be because just whatever their core business function is doesn't, it's hard to value, or it has not done well in the past, or for whatever reason. We're supportive of everyone that wants to do it. We don't own them all. We think very carefully about what the core function that they're serving is and what that's actually worth. So that's sort of our first hurdle, right? But you ask, can anyone do this? There's a limited amount of room for Bitcoin development companies. No, everyone cannot do what Michael has done, and the way he's thinking about corporate finance is on another level. So no, everyone can't do that. He's already got that first mover advantage. He's out there and he continues to do it. He continues to innovate. So can everyone be that? No, but can others, store value and raise capital and put it into Bitcoin? Absolutely. Not everyone can be a MicroStrategy, but anyone that wants to transfer the value of their capital and the excess capital that they have earned or earn into another time period in the future without losing purchasing power, or with a very low probability of losing purchasing power the longer you want to store it. Yeah, we're highly supportive of that. And there's room for more to do it. And I think the way that it develops is, people start to look around and they say, oh, that guy's fund is doing really well. Why? Oh, he's bought Bitcoin. Oh, that company has outperformed every other thing. Why? Oh, because it's in Bitcoin. Oh, that operating guy had a challenge. His core business was declining. He had a bunch of excess cash, and he started using his declining cash flow to buy Bitcoin, and his company's still around. And ours is going down the tube. So maybe we should try and be a little more innovative. So that's how it works, slowly but surely. And then people start looking around and going, everyone else who's buying Bitcoin is doing better than I am. So, and then it just, the snowball rolls downhill.
What do you think is preventing some of these giants like Apple? Dell and Microsoft are interesting, right? Microsoft was allowing people to purchase items through their store with Bitcoin for a long time, up until I think about a year ago. Same with Dell. Um, what's holding some of these larger institutions back from going all in on Bitcoin? I think Apple has like what, $1 trillion in cash just sitting on the sidelines or something like that. Why don't they allocate a small portion of that to Bitcoin? Tesla obviously figured it out.
Right. I'm still confused as to why they stopped at like 10,000 or whatever they own. Well, for a while it was a real political issue, right? And there was lack of regulatory clarity around it. And now with this administration, that's exactly what's happening. You're getting that regulatory clarity. The frameworks are being put together now as we speak. So it's just a matter of time now that we've got a friendly administration. I mean, if you just look, one of the things I think is super interesting socially is the way these massive tech companies tones have just changed overnight with regard to all kinds of political issues. You're like, oh, what is going on here, right? It's just like an echo chamber now with social media, and it's just really interesting. So I think that now with this administration change, you now have an opportunity where you're going to see more companies do it. And I think that is what you've seen with the number of companies that have owned Bitcoin over the past, 6 months has changed drastically. So it's again, the snowball's rolling downhill.
Certainly. I know you and I were chatting offline earlier. One of the companies you guys just got involved with was GameStop, and they had a pretty big announcement the other day. Walk me through the whole GameStop saga, and then tell me a little bit about how you guys are getting involved with Ryan and team.
So we just initiated a starter position. It's a small weight for us. I think it's about 1%, if not a little less. We're very interested in companies that want to have a Bitcoin Treasury strategy, just because it suggests they're innovative. It suggests they're thinking outside the box. And if you look at Ryan as a pickup for Team Bitcoin, I mean, he's a legendary memer, right? And memes are a way that the ideas get around and get around quickly. So to have him helping with that and adding that level of capital, just coming in. I mean, I think they have a few billion of cash on the balance sheet. He's issuing 1.3 billion today in converts. So, will he be an outright Bitcoin development company? Is there room for it? Can he figure out innovative ways to solve similar problems that Saylor has? I don't know, but from a capital allocation perspective, having a small weight in that, at least the second it was announced, makes a lot of sense. So we're following it closely. The power of ideas to travel today is unlike it ever has been. And that's why these big centralized media platforms are so important, and who owns them and what's going on and the way they're run. So that ability of ideas to spread quickly, it hasn't been around forever. Prior to social media, Bitcoin would not have been possible, right? I mean, you wouldn't have been able to get the word out there. It's now the world changes, context changes, and so we want to be involved in changing context and potential right tails on the investment side. Again, it's not our largest position, but it's one that we want to be involved in and follow closely, and so that's why we just initiated a starter position in it.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see, how the narrative continues to progress with GameStop. I think it's going to be a catalyst for some other companies that fit the bill and profile of GameStop to get involved as well. Yeah, it's just a really interesting time, right? GameStop historically, a retail store, just like, MetaPlanet was a retail hotel chain. And MicroStrategy, now Strategy, was a software as a service company. Seeing them all pivot into this is just so fascinating.
Yeah, well,
Where
to your point, I mean, a lot of this, a lot of the impetus for companies getting into Bitcoin is they're having real secular challenges, right? So GameStop selling physical copies of games when they're now being downloaded in a whole new way that they haven't been able to be sold before kind of hurts GameStop's business model, right? And that secular change is going to continue to move in that direction, I think. And so a lot of the companies that are moving into Bitcoin are going, yeah, I have a secular challenge, and here's a way to solve that secular challenge. There's this entirely new way of accounting for things, and the overall market cap and expectations for it may be too low, and this is a better way to store the value that I have created and could eventually create. So even though and then more broadly though, everyone's actually got a problem. The world's a competitive place, so everyone is facing some sort of secular challenge, and I think in most people's lives, Bitcoin can solve that challenge. And so, like, one of the ways we conceptualize of it and think it is important is, okay, if the monetary authorities that govern your dollars have an explicit policy, right, to devalue those dollars by 2% a year, maybe a little more, maybe a little less some years, but 2% plus, it's been more than that over a long period of time, actually. Why not take that percent of what you have and is denominated in those things that are going away, 2%, and stick it in the thing that the goal is for that not to happen, and that's Bitcoin. So take 2% of everything you have, and if you're not there yet, you need to get to at least 2% because that's going away anyway in everything you have. So it makes a lot of sense to do that and then hold it for a long period of time. And I think more people should have that perspective, and I think it would suit them very well.
for a CFO or corporate treasurer that's listening to this and seeing what GameStop's doing, I'm sure there's still some skeptics out there like, hey, this is just a band-aid to a temporary problem. GameStop is a failing business. This isn't a long-term solution. You're a value investor. So how would you push back on that critique?
Bitcoin is a long-term solution to a much bigger problem, right? Which is inflation and the fact that monetary authorities are destroying the value of everything you own. And that's happening every single day. And so, again, we need to think more broadly and expansively about technologies and money and what they mean and whether or not there's a better way to do what we've been doing for, thousands of years in the fiat baskets, all of which have gone to zero, by the way. And Bitcoin is certainly showing that that's probably likely to continue. I mean, I think it's really interesting when you look at these financial professionals who get real upset about Bitcoin's success and have had no hand in it and still don't. And they go, oh, in 10 years, Bitcoin's going to be way down. It's like, why? Well, why is your base case a reversal in a 16-year trend instead of contextualizing that 16-year trend and understanding and maybe trying to explain why it's happening and why it could continue to happen? I mean, I love what David tweeted out, CEO of Bitcoin Inc. And you don't own any? Like, what are you thinking about here, man? I mean, get on board. So, yeah, we think there's a long way to go.